What's your favorite way to introduce children to herbalism?
Yeah. So I actually just wrote an article about this.
Nice.
Yeah, so that'll be coming out in spring. Actually, I'm not sure when it's. I think it's coming out in spring.
Is that going to be on your website or?
That's going to be on the next Mountain Rose
Nice.
journal.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Sweet. We'll link to that for sure.
Yeah, it's called Playing with Plants.
Okay.
Botanical games, practices for children.
Sweet.
I think that's the name that we settled on.
Okay.
I can't remember. There's a lot of back and forth with the editor.
I know the drill.
You know the drill. Yeah, so with kids. So for one kid, it's different if you have one child as opposed to with a group of children. But one of the first things that I love to do is making up the name of a plant. So for example, let's say we're walking into a place and there's, I like to begin with toxicodendron, the poison ivy. So let's say it's a kid that's never met poison ivy before, even if you're with a group of children who some of the children know poison ivy, I'll just preface it with, hey, so if you know this plant already, don't give it away. Let other people have a surprise. So tell me what you see. And so people will say, oh, the leaves are shiny, maybe they're a little bit red, it's crawling up. If it's a vining poison ivy, maybe there's lobe, or it's rounded. They wouldn't say lobes. It's rounded on the edge of the leaf. There's 3 of them, or whatever else they're noticing. Or if it's a plant that you can touch, let's say a monarda or a type of mint, like rub the leaf, smell the flower, tell me what you notice. So starting again with the senses, starting again with organoleptics around what can you see, what can you smell, if it's something which is okay to taste, what do you taste, what does it feel like, starting with that. And then, let's tune into the plant. What would you name this plant, or what does this plant tell you its name is? So first either coming up with the name for a plant or intuiting the name for a plant before opening up the books and discerning, okay, this plant is poison ivy, toxicodendron radicans in the Anacardiaceae, blah, 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 blah. Like first coming to their own relationship with, and maybe making up a story like, oh, what kind of secrets does this plant tell you about it? Or what do you feel when you're sitting next to this plant? Oh, I feel excited. I really want to touch it. So having that questioning mindset. I love playing games. So the one handkerchief game that I talk about in the article is where when walking along a trail, assuming that you already know some of the plants in this area, and if it's okay to pick plants in this area, as you're walking, just surreptitiously picking a leaf here, a flower there, just different identifiable parts of a plant, and gathering it into a cloth. So maybe about 5 to 10 plants, depending on the age of the child, into the cloth. And then when you get to a place where it's good to stop, calling the child or the children over and having the cloth set down on the ground with the plants in an arrangement and being like, okay, you have 5 seconds or 10 seconds to take a look at what's here. Remember. So unveil what's on the cloth, have the kids take a look, and then close it back up and tell them, okay, now go and gather that. And it's a big challenge. It's really fun.
Wow.
Yeah.
I'm curious do you have any memories of what kids have said particular plants' names were? Like, has any stood out to you? That just sounds like such a fun activity.
It's so much fun.
And I'm thinking, like, what would a kid say Poison Oak's name was, you know?
Yeah.
Like, does anything come to mind, or?
I've had some really fun names over the years.
Yeah.
Like fairy things and the animal names.
Sure.
But I can't remember specifics.
Sure. That's fair. Okay.
Yeah. I think Shiny Red was one of the names for toxicodendron,
Sure.
maybe. Yeah.
By the way, does poison oak grow down here in California?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have a lot of it in Eugene, Oregon. So.
Yeah, it's one of our native forest protectors.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. I like looking at it like not as an enemy, but it's got a purpose, right?
Right.
Yeah, I love that.
Shout out to Jim McDonald.
Okay. Is that what he teaches?
Oh
or?
yeah, Jim loves poison oak and poison ivy. I remember in Oregon actually walking with Jim outside of Mountain Rose area in the hills above.
For your herbalism project.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah, and we saw a little bit of poison oak, and he was just like, oh, wow, wow, like so excited.
Yeah.
Like I walked around the plant, and Jim was like, ah.
That's super cool.
Yeah.
Did you want to share anything about that experience, about maybe what he said about poison oak specifically, or as far as like having it as an ally, or?
Yeah, so Jim has an article about it somewhere on his website about. I think his perspective is similar as mine, as far as this plant is a protector of the forest and likes to live on the edge in this disturbed soil and keep the people who are not being watchful away from these areas. And I think he was particularly fascinated because he's in Michigan, Mitten State. Yep. In Michigan, it's the poison ivy, whereas over here we have poison oak. I can't remember what the species is for that one over there. So the similarities and differences he was really fascinated by. So the little curly Q tendrils that we have on our poison oak, poison ivy also have the ability to crawl across the ground and also go up trees. Both of them have that. And then the little nuances, like ours, I think, is more lobed, just a little bit more lobed, and theirs is just a tiny bit more toothed, if I remember correctly. Like just tiny little subtle differences that he was going gaga over for a while.
Love it.